Welcome, everyone. Let's begin our lesson for today by going over the learning goals and success criteria. First, what are we learning? We're learning how to find the domain of a function both algebraically and graphically, and how to sketch graphs of functions based on the characteristics of a function. How are we learning it? Through the intervals of functions part 1 notes and the intervals of functions part 1 assignment. When can we use this information? To be imaginative in your ability to find solutions to problems when you are only given limited information. How do you know you learned it? By getting a score of 4 on the intervals of functions part 1 assignment. Now let's take a look at our agenda for today. We will begin by going over our learning goals and success criteria. While we do that, you'll fill out your Get It Started. Once you've completed your Get It Started, we'll go over it together and answer any questions that you may have. After that, we'll go over the intervals of functions part 1 notes, and then I'll give you time to complete the intervals of functions part 1 assignment on Desmos. Once you've completed the assignment, we'll go over it together and answer any questions that you may have. At the end of class, we'll go back over our learning goals and success criteria while you fill out your Before You Go. Your only homework for tonight is to continue working on the reasoning with features of function study guide and any incomplete assignments that you may have. Let's take a look now at the intervals of functions part 1 notes. The notes begin with the learning goals and success criteria. Now let's talk about positive and negative functions. And we're not really talking about positive and negative functions as a whole. We're talking about the intervals where these things occur. So functions are said to be positive on a given interval when the range of the function, or the y values, is above the x-axis. So when the graph is showing above the x-axis, that's where the function is positive. Now they're negative on a given interval when the range is below the x-axis. So what does this look like? Well, we have a graph here, and notice my graph goes here, it passes through the x-axis, comes down, it starts to come back up, changes again and becomes above the x-axis. So in this case, we would say that the positive intervals are the green sections. So here, the graph is above. Even though it's going downward, it's still above the x-axis. So up until this point right here, it's positive. Then once it hits this point, it starts to become negative all the way until it hits this point again. Once it hits this point, now it's positive again. The purple area would be considered the negative intervals, where it goes below the x-axis. So even though right here it changes direction and starts going back up, it's still negative until it reaches this point where it actually crosses the x-axis and starts to work above. So now how do we determine where an interval is positive and negative? Well, if we look at this graph here, we have a graph where it is negative here all the way from negative infinity all the way up until it gets to negative 4. And then it becomes positive after that. Now, over on this side, we have it being negative from negative 2 all the way until this point here. We'll call it negative 1. It may not be exactly negative 1, but it's close. So it's negative from negative infinity to negative 4, and then from negative 2 to negative 1. And then it becomes positive from negative 4 to negative 2, and from negative 1 to positive infinity. So that's how we can use graphs to determine the intervals on which a function is positive or negative.
Let's talk now about how to sign in to Desmos to complete your work. So what we're going to do is you're going to click on the link to go to the assignment, and it should take you to a page that looks kind of like this. And right here where it says sign in with Google, we're going to click there. And it's going to pop up with our email accounts. You're going to click on your school email account, and it should already have you logged in because you should have already been logged in using Google Classroom. From there, I'm just going to click Start the Activity, and it will take me into the assignment and allow me to begin. So that's how you will log in to Desmos using Google.
Let's take a look now at the intervals of functions part 1 assignment. The assignment begins with the learning goals and success criteria. If we scroll down, there's a link here to take us to the Desmos activity. Go ahead and click on that link, and it should take you to a page that looks like this. We'll go ahead and click Start the Activity. The activity begins with the learning goals and success criteria as well. We'll go ahead and click Next. Now for this one, it says drag the dots to create intervals for the positive and negative parts. The green part will represent the positive, and the purple part will represent the negative. So I can see that right here is where it crosses. So I'm going to go ahead and drag that point there. And over here on the left side of that point, all of the values are positive. So I'm going to go ahead and shade that whole region using the green like that. Then over here, it changes to be negative right here. So I'm going to go ahead and place that point there as well. And it's negative from there on out. So this whole region would be shaded negative. And you'll do that for each of these. Now below, we're going to state where the function is positive. Well, we can see it's positive from negative infinity up through this point here, which is at negative 2, 0. So up through negative 2. So at negative 2, it becomes 0 and is no longer positive, which means that negative 2 is not included in the set because at negative 2, our value is neither positive nor negative. So that would be our interval there. Now for the negatives, same thing. It starts at negative 2 here, and it goes to positive infinity. So we go ahead and type that in. And those are our intervals. So you'll do that for this one. Do the same thing here and here. Then on slide 5, you're going to sketch a graph again. So this time it says the domain is negative infinity to positive infinity. So it's going to go all the way across. It has a y-intercept at the origin. So I'm going to go ahead and place a point here at the origin because I know that one counts. The function has two x-intercepts, and one of them is at x equals negative 3. So right there. And notice the origin is also an x-intercept, so here's our two x-intercepts, here and here. The function is negative on negative 3 to 0. So between these, it's going to be negative. So we know it's going to go something like this between here. And it's positive from negative infinity to negative 3. So it's going to be positive on this side. And it's positive on this side. So it should look something like that. And again, you can make this do whatever you want it to do, just as long as this part here matches up. And when you're done with that, you can go ahead and go back to your Google form and click Next. This will take you to your Before You Go. Go ahead and fill out your Before You Go and then submit your work on Google Classroom.